This is the Toshiba TV M550L, and we got the 65-inch version like 2 weeks ago for review, and today we'll go through some of our thoughts and experiences, and we also have quite a lot of things to talk about it. So let's begin. So from the moment that we got the TV, we obviously have to unbox it and also set it up. But yeah, unfortunately this TV is using a very old school style of TV packaging, and while it is not an issue for most people, I would still say, because that we have reviewed quite a lot of TVs in the past, this unboxing experience and setup process could have been more streamlined and better in a sense. And especially the TV is 65 inches in size, it's kind of gaudy to handle. So the box separates into two pieces, and from there we'll have to take off the top part, lay it flat on the floor and use it as a base for the TV to rest on while we screw in the legs of the TV. And speaking of the legs, they are extremely minimalist while also providing adequate stability for the TV. As you can see here, such a huge TV, it's very stable actually. But the legs are so short that it is more or less like about 5 centimeters away from the table surface, and if you want to use it with a soundbar, then it's basically just impossible. You have to wall mount the TV instead. And on that subject of wall mounting, let's talk about the ports, because this TV comes with triple HDMI ports. The first of the ports actually supports eARC, and I don't know what HDMI versions that they're using, but it doesn't actually matter because this panel only goes up to 4K 60Hz, and HDMI 2.0 is already sufficient. But we'll also return to talk about the ports in a while. And the color accuracy of this TV, and that is something that I will have to say, I was very skeptical about the marketing material because it says something called quantum dot color, and I don't know what that means because it is still using an LED backlight array anyway and an LCD layer for the colors to be produced, and quantum dot color just doesn't actually make sense. I stopped bothering about the marketing material and watched some content on this TV, and wow, it actually looks very good. And it also has fantastic color accuracy as reported by our colorimeter. It covers 98% of Srgb color gamut while having a relatively low delta E number. And with that said, it also comes with HDR10 Plus, and we also watched some HDR video, and this TV just made it look amazing. The HDR experience is further elevated by the inclusion of a full array local dimming for the LED backlight, but the performance, I would say, is considered to be average, actually quite above average. We tried the local dimming test video and it performs fairly decent. If we look at all the banding, then we can technically estimate and draw out the LED backlight array, and yeah, we can actually estimate it in a relatively high degree of accuracy. From what we see, the LED backlight array is somewhat dense, and that is why we consider it to be above average. If you want to play some games using this TV, then there's also something called the auto low latency mode, also known as ALLM, as shown on the box. I think it's on the box, but whatever, I think it's a software. I guess the ALLM feature only works for consoles, because if I connect this TV to a laptop via HDMI, it didn't automatically turn on the low latency mode, but we can still head into the settings menu to enable it manually, and it definitely reduced the latency because the mouse cursor is a lot more responsive. Hence, I would still say it's not fast enough to play competitive games like CSGO and whatnot, but you can play games like let's just say GTA 5. And speaking of that, the settings menu available on this TV is pretty thorough. So we have the picture settings to set the color temperature, noise reduction, filmmaker mode, which automatically changes all of your settings to match what the filmmaker intends for us to watch. And then there's also another color calibration mode that lets us manually adjust the color intensity of different tones of colors. You can also tune it to your personal preference or use a colorimeter to make it as color accurate as possible. And we also turn off the motion smoothness, aka MEMC, or motion enhanced motion compensation. I think that's what it's called. But whatever you want to call it, I disabled that feature because it just looks horrible and I absolutely hate that feature. And now we should talk about the remote control because it has a lot of buttons and also has a lot of great features built in. like the input button at the top left corner that brings up the menu that aggregates all of the HDMI inputs, TV tuner, AirPlay, and also the USB file explorer into one single menu. And then I also want to highlight the bunch of buttons at the bottom section of the remote control because it has integration from major streaming services like Netflix, Amazon Prime Video, YouTube, and Google Play. And we also tested out with Netflix, and if we press the subtitle button, then it immediately jumps to the menu that lets us adjust the subtitles. So there is a certain degree of software integration with the remote control. And we can also view the resolution of content that it is streaming and playing, and its bitrate as well by just hitting the I+ button on the remote control. I would say that this feature is particularly useful because Netflix offers different packages for 4K video streaming, and if we know the bitrate that we are currently streaming, then we can judge if our internet can handle 4K or not. It's kind of technical in this sense, but it's a good point to show you if you have enough headroom to stream in 4K. But maybe you don't even need to stream in 4K because this TV is powered by the Toshiba TV's Rexa Engine 4K Pro that upscales your content from 1080p to 4K. Unfortunately, we cannot test out the performance of this upscaler because there's just no setting to enable or disable the upscaler. However, the upper part of this remote is rather confusing. So you can see the Google Assistant button is at the position of where I would assume the home button is supposed to be, because currently, since the back button is here, I would assume home button is here, but I keep pressing the Google Assistant button. And then for apps like Netflix, hitting the play pause button at the bottom side of this remote control here opens up another menu for you to play pause or stop or go previous or next for your content. But to access those buttons, you need to press on the D-pad instead. So it's kind of weird. If you press the play pause button down here, you have to go all the way up to control whatever you're doing. So it's kind of a mismatch in terms of the button placement. And there are also two ways to technically enter the settings menu. So the first way is to press the two-line box button here at the bottom, which lets you to enter a settings menu, the picture settings menu. And then you can enter the full-fledged settings menu by hitting the gear button around the top side here. Of course, they are slightly different in terms of the settings available for you to tune, and the double line box button here is an overlay for the settings menu, but the gear button is taking up the entire screen. By the way, this Toshiba TV M550L is also using the latest version of Android TV, which is why the interface is different. And we also do have the standard Android TV features like far-field microphone, so we can just yell "OK Google" and then we can enable screenless mode so that we can yell "OK Google" when the screen is entirely turned off. And we should also talk about the speakers on this TV. So the Toshiba TV also comes with the Rexa Power Audio Pro system and a 25 watts bazooka bass booster with two clear direct speakers. And I don't really care about the marketing at all, but when we do test the speakers, it actually sounds really good. So have a listen here. And then if you want to use this TV with an external speaker, then you will need to know what you're doing first. Like what we have mentioned earlier, soundbars are pretty much impossible to use with this TV with its default stand, so you will need to wall mount this TV. So if you're doing that, then that brings up another issue, which is the port placement. So you see the audio jack is at the side there, pointing towards the sides, but the SPDIF, optical audio, and the Ethernet port is pointing towards the wall. So I'm not sure if it will pose any issue if you want to wall mount this TV, but it's worth highlighting because I just think that most people would want to use those ports. And finally, the price. They're all listed on the screen right here, and the Toshiba TV M550L is available in 3 different sizes. I don't know if there's any additional differences between the three variants other than just the size, so we'll only comment about the 65-inch version that we have here. For the price of 4,399 ringgit, I think it's fairly decent. Remember, this is considered a mid-range 4K 60Hz Android TV, chock full of features, especially the full array local dimming, and it also enables better HDR viewing experience. So I think generally, if you're just gonna buy this TV, gonna be sufficient enough for technically all of your use cases, and you'll be happy with it. It's just that if you want to use it with wall mount, external speakers and whatnot, those are the things that you need to take note of. So that's it. That's all we have to share with you about this TV. And I hope you like this video. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comment section below. And we'll see you guys in the next video.